G'day, Michael here. I just want to go through the range of Polytec benchtop materials, and there are a couple of different edge details, and there are a couple of different finishes, of course, and there's a lot of different colours. Now the colours, they've kind of got a range that stays constant for a while. There's other colours that, you know, get turned over pretty quickly. Obviously, what doesn't sell, they take off their range and add new products that make sense to them. Okay, so primarily with the bench tops, you need edges on the bench top. So there's the laminate for the bench top, and this is the edge detail. Now this is a 2mm edge. I don't know where that shows up. Focus. Focus, come on guys. It's got a 2mm edge, and it's got a radius, as you can see there, but it's essentially a square edge, and that's the underside. And that's the top side. Let's see if that focuses on that. Will it focus? Come on, guys. Okay, so there's a bit of a glue line. It's very, very thin. It actually looks worse on the video than it is in person, funny enough. But yeah, so that's one option for an edge. They've got quite a long warranty. I can't remember how long it is now, but I think it's at least 7 years anyway for the manufacturer's warranty for that. Now this is designed for kitchen bench tops, so it's obviously meant to be waterproof, etc. I have not yet used this for a kitchen bench top myself, so I have no experience with it, you know, in the field. This is more typical for what people buy. The laminate is rolled around the whole surface, so there's the top surface rolled around the front and underneath. Now you can see there's a bit of a groove left there. That's actually a result of the machining out the underside by about 1mm to roll the edge around and have it somewhere to tuck in. The laminate ends up being somewhere near flush. So you can see how the benchtop laminate comes around the surface, around the front edge, and underneath into that rebated space. Now, any of these sorts of edges, water can run around the edge before it drips off. So that little gap there provides a spot for water to drip off. If it doesn't drip off earlier, it'll drip off of that groove. Let me just have a closer look at that. Does that show up? So it'll drip off of that groove if it doesn't drip off there. I find usually it falls clear here. Which brings us to another point. With any of the bench tops, particularly where there's a wet area, a lot of people like to think that they can have the doors flush, but it's completely unwise to have the doors flush to the bench top because water will go under, on top of the door and inside. So you end up damaging the doors needlessly. If the doors have a reasonable overhang, that's much wiser because the water will drip clear and won't land on the doors underneath and won't end up in your cupboards. So what I normally do is I'll leave a 40mm overhang to the actual cabinet, and then the door adds to that. So it ends up being roughly sort of 20mm overhang. So it's about that sort of distance. Now the water will come around the surface and drip clear if you spill something or whatever. And that's always a consideration which seems to be lacking in a lot of, like you see in magazines and showrooms, they'll often show, you know, this kind of a flush line, and it looks really good, but it's not a very practical, focus, it's not a very practical thing for everyday use. What you see in the showrooms is really, I'd say, highly unrecommended. I'm going to say if it's in a showroom, don't do that in your home. That's a pretty strong statement, but it really is pretty true. There's bound to be something in a showroom that's valid, but more often than not, they give the customer the wrong impression of what is actually going to work in their place. Okay, now this particular round is called tight form. That's what they've called it, right? And the aim of that is to give you a maximum flat surface and the smallest possible radius either side. When you compare that to, say, this design, this is called a 10-10. So it's got a 10mm radius both sides. Now in my little box of goodies here, sorry about the noise, in my little box of goodies, they have a number of different edge designs, but they are dropping a couple of different designs off their range. But if you were to go to polytec.com.au, you'd be able to see all those details. Now Polytec is the supplier I use for most things because, well, their truck goes past my door and they charge me very little for delivery, and you know, it's very practical for me generally. I also can pick up from the depot if I'm in, say, Canberra, which is 200 kilometres away from here, but I can pick up the product at their warehouse, or I can have it delivered to my workshop. All right. They also have different thicknesses. So if you see this thickness versus that thickness, this is 30, well, I think it's 34mm, and this is like 40mm. And you can see here's another example. Here's the 34 millimeters, but with the 10-10 radius. So you can see compared to the other one, which was the tight form. Let's closer. Where are we there? You can see the difference on the radius focus. There we go. So you can see the difference in the radius. And compare back to, say, the square. Is that better? Okay, so you can see those sort of edge details. Well, I guess that's it for the benchtop designs. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, ask a question, leave a comment. Bye for now.